friends. Why don't you settle in and watch me finish this piece from last month? Well, today I thought I would show you a finishing project that I've been delaying because I've just been busy with other things. And what I want to do is I want to finish this piece right here, which is called SnoGnomes SnoCones by the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. And it is something that what I want to do is I want to flat finish it. So fold this and put it on a flat piece. And then I purchased this set from Chantel's 141 Design Company. And this is a display board. So this piece right here is the base. And then this gets glued on top. And then these pieces, we've got a little chimney accent and a little roof line accent. And once these are painted and glued together, you can put them in the slot to make a display board. So I can put my cross stitch piece right here. So the first thing I need to do is I need to paint all of these little pieces, and I thought I would do that right now. This piece right here does not need to be painted because there isn't going to be any exposed wood showing, but I need to paint this piece and this piece and this piece white, and then also the snowflake. And then I thought I would paint the chimney of the house this gray paint that I got from Michael's, kind of like in a stone pattern, like a cobblestone pattern. And then I'm going to paint the body of the house this green, which I thought was a pretty close match to the green that is in the cross stitch piece. So why don't I go ahead and get started with painting all of these pieces first. I'll get all the white done first. I like to use a paper plate to put all of the paint on, and then I have some sponges here, and then I have some brushes for fine work too. Now, I am going to try to keep these like burned edges intact. If I get a little paint on them, I have a sanding block that I can use to sand the paint off the edges. It's not a big deal, it's just I kind of like that aesthetic. So let's get painting. So I try to get the brush strokes to kind of like all go the same direction. I don't think it's a super big deal when it's drying, but when it's wet, it's like really obvious. You can see the paint's like kind of leveling out there. Okay, so I finished my white pieces. I don't know if we'll do a second coat or not. And now let's do this piece. Now for this piece, because the cross stitch is going to be covering a lot of it, and then also this part will be covered by the glued on roof trim piece, I don't need to paint the whole thing. What I can do is I can paint kind of the edges and go from there. I'm going to use a wider thing. The other thing I'm going to do too is I'm just going to put a touch of white into this paint. Let's try to mix it up a little bit just to kind of lighten the dark green a little bit. They had like a perfect dark green that they were out of stock on, and that's the way it goes sometimes. Yeah, I like it a little lighter. I could mess around with blue, but I'm not going to. Pretty relaxing. I can feel my serotonin levels rising. Okay, I definitely feel I have a wide enough border for the cross stitch in the middle. So let's turn this around and then let's make the chimney. Now the chimney has this little white trim piece that's going to go on top, and then I just have to do like some art stuff here on this. And so I'm going to get my little gray out. I'm going to start with a smaller brush this time because I don't feel like cleaning the other ones. I'm going to start by just doing a flat layer of the gray. This is a nice warm gray. I like it. And if you work in thin layers, then it dries pretty easily and you don't have to worry too much about colors bleeding into each other. Okay, so now while my paint is still kind of wet, I'm going to take a thin brush and I'm just going to use the white paint to start drawing like little cobblestone lines. Just kind of making a random. And then once I've kind of sketched where I want them to be, I can make them blend into each other a little bit better. Just with these older houses, you know how sometimes there's like extra thick lines of mortar and then thinner lines of mortar, just depending on how they're fitting the little cobbles together, or stone, whatever that's called. I'll go ahead and do a connecting line on the edge here because I like that. Okay. And then I want to set my brush down and get paint everywhere. Okay. Now I'm going to use a dry brush and I'm just going to kind of blend. Okay, I'm happy with that. So, there's definitely a little green bleeding in, so I'll just go ahead and try to touch that up a little bit. But it doesn't have to be a big deal because that trim piece is going to cover some of that. And then I'm just going to use Elastis paint just to kind of smooth out some lines here. Like, does I need another coat? Maybe. Get a little more paint out. Mix that white in so I get the same tone approximately. This might be just a touch lighter, but that's okay. Oh yeah, it's lighter, but you know what? That's okay, I'm going with it because I actually kind of like it. Looking at the original cross stitch piece is DMC 500, and so that's kind of like a spruce green, I guess. Okay, so these pieces are all ready to go. I just have to kind of wait for the paint to dry on these, and then I can glue them together. So while I'm waiting, what I'll do is I will clean up my brushes and put my paint away, and then I will get my ironing board out and we will lace this piece next. Okay, I have done a little work behind the scenes and now I'm ready for the next part of this project. The nice thing about using like craft paper on your workspace with paint is you can just go ahead and slide things out of your way. Sorry about the crinkle there. And now I am ready to lace the cross stitch piece. So I have my tools. I've got some lacing thread, a needle, and some scissors. I've just pressed this piece. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have a big crease right in the middle. And then I have pre-cut a piece of mat board. This is about a 1/2 inch bigger than the finished piece, so we'll have like little, about a 1/4 inch margin on each side. And then I have a piece of scrap batting that I'll put on the board. So we'll start with that. Just using a little fabric glue, get it on the board. Yeah, just scribble a line. You don't have to use a ton of glue, but just enough to get the batting on the board. And then, get this out of the way. Just lay your batting on top and smooth it. Don't stretch it too much, but just make it smooth. There's going to be a lot of excess around, and what we will do, because the glue is strong enough to hold, is we're going to trim it very close to the side. You know, like a scant 1/4 inch, maybe an 1/8 inch, depending on how fussy you want to be. Okay, now this piece, I'm just going to cut this little corner off just because it was bugging me. You don't have to worry too much about these little strings, but I will do that too. Some people prepare their fabric by serging the edges. I do not do that, and maybe that's bad. You know, we'll see. I haven't noticed like it being too hard to deal with if it's a little bit frayed, but I guess it depends on the project. So I'm going to pull out a large amount of thread. Now this is a relatively small piece, so you don't have to go crazy, but I like to get, you know, I don't know, maybe like 50 inches to work with, because this kind of lacing eats up thread. Now, once you get your needle threaded, this thread is a polyester, like upholstery thread. And for most like 28 count fabrics, that should be okay. Sometimes when you use non-natural threads, they can actually cut into your piece over time, especially if you're lacing very tightly. But this is not something I'm going to lace tightly. And I've had actually a lot of issues with natural like cotton or linen threads breaking. And so that's why I'm just going to go ahead and use this. I've had some good results. Okay, so you're going to want to center your piece, but you're going to want to find, kind of by wrapping the center, you want it to be about even on each side. And then what I like to do is I like to lace the longer edge first. So once you're pretty happy with this, go ahead and flip it over, and then you're going to start on one side. So I have tied a little knot on the back side, or at the end of my thread, and it's like a little like loop. This is called a lark's head knot. So what I can do is I can draw my needle through the loop and pull it through, and now my thread is secure. And I've done one stitch down and then back up to make this little loop at the end, like a lasso, I guess. So now what you're going to do is you're going to fold the other side, and then you're going to stick your needle down through and then bring it up, I don't know, about like a centimeter, or, you know, a little less than 1/2 inch, somewhere between a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch, and bring it up. And then now you're going to go back to close to where you tied your knot. You're going to go down through the fabric and then back up. And sometimes your thread will snarl, and that's okay. You can let go of your piece because you're going to be pulling it tight as you get closer to having more of it laced. And so now what we're doing is we're just lacing back and forth. Okay, when you get to the end, just give it one more look, make sure you're happy with it, and then go ahead and just work through from the beginning and just kind of pull these taut. Like, they don't have to be so tight that you feel like they're rebounding, but you don't want them to be droopy. because that'll make your piece sag later. So you gotta kind of just find like a balance. I would say you want a firm tension, but not like, you know, a tennis racket. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how tight this is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, down, and then up through the fabric again one more time. And then I'm going to do that a second time, and then I'm going to knot. And I just use a regular overhand knot to finish this, but I do like 2 or 3 of them just because I don't want it to come undone. Okay, and then when you're happy with that, go ahead and snip your thread. This thread is not long enough to lace a lot on this side, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just check and make sure I'm happy with up and down. Looks like I want to pull it just a little bit down. Okay, now you can start and stop thread like in the middle of a lacing area. I actually think it's it puts less stress on the thread overall if you did do that. It's just fussy, you know, to have to start. Okay, so what I do is I usually pull the corner a little tight so that it is angled inward. So when I fold over, you don't see that area where I folded. And so once I have that folded down, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go down and up through both layers of fabric. So through the layer I just folded down, and then actually I'm trying to catch the fabric that I've already laced below. So that corner is just kind of locked down. I tie my knot. I'm going to get rid of this extra thread just because I don't want it showing on the front of my piece later. Okay, and then you're going to fold this inward a little bit, that angle, fold it down, and then down, and then up through that corner. Now some people like to use like clips to just hold their lacing fabric down. I find that I get like little marks where the spring clip kind of pushed the fabric into the batting, and so I don't tend to do that. If you do that, I guess what you could do is you could do that, and then you could always steam it to get those marks out. I just not for something like this. Thread got caught around my corner. There we go. Okay, let's look at it again. Looking good. Okay. Okay, so I'm getting close to this edge, and so I am going to fold this corner in, because we're going to try to do that same thing where we have the angle inward to prevent the dog ear. And then I'm just going to hold it with one finger, and then I'm going to continue lacing with the other hand. And I cut this thread kind of close. I wish I'd cut like maybe another foot, because I am like at the end of my thread. So let's go ahead and pull the excess tightness through. I'm gonna have to get a drink of water, excuse me. Ouch. And don't stab yourself, Sally. Okay. This is tight, but I can still do it. So I've pushed the needle through the bottom. Okay. Then I'm going to loop again through. And then I'm going to start my overhand knots. And I'm going to do like 2 or 3 of them. Now you can do like a mitered corner on each side. This would be something you definitely would need clips for, because you'd have to have something holding your miters down. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with how it's laced on the back. Now keep in mind that I am going to be gluing this to this board, and so it doesn't need to be like perfect, but there we go. Looks good. I do want to add some trim, and so I found this trim downstairs. Now this was like from a bulk pack of pom-pom trims I received from, I think, Primrose Cottage, but it was just like 30 random colors and about a yard of trim each. And I thought that this red was pretty close to the red in the piece, and because I painted my house green, I thought the red would look really nice against the green. And so I'm going to attach it to the edge. Now you can attach this with glue. A lot of people like to do that. I really don't like how messy I am with glue, and that's a Sally problem more than an everyone else problem. And so what I will do is I will actually continue to use the lacing thread, and I will sew it to the back. So let me get set up for that. So I'm going to go ahead and secure the thread to the laced piece first. Oh, my knot fell out. I didn't tie it well enough. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to start with the trim, and we're going to go around in this direction, so counterclockwise. So rather than start right at the very end bobble, I usually start 2 or 3 bobbles in, and I line it up with the edge of the cross stitch piece, and then I go into the fabric and then up through the cross stitch piece, and it's going to get caught on corners again. And then we'll just do like kind of a starting stitch where we just come back down and then up in the same spot. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to come by about 1/4 inch here, and we're going to go into the laced fabric and then back up through the trim again. So a long stitch to get you over, and then a short little stitch to catch the pom-pom trim. That's a hem stitch. Hello again. So I've gotten to the end of stitching, and so I've got the end I started with and then the end I finished, and they are about less than 1 inch, maybe about 1/2 inch apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and secure my thread by dipping in one more time and then tying overhand knots, 2 to 3 of them. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and trim my thread tail, and now I'm also going to trim the leftover trim end I have. So let's leave like 2 or 3 pom-poms on each side. And now this is where I am going to use a little bit of glue just to finish the edge off. So what I'm doing is I am folding the first tail down, and I'm using a little dab of glue. Oh, this makes me nervous to get that done. And then a little dab of glue for the other one. Press it down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of tuck the little tails down. And actually, let's glue them down because we got glue going on anyway. Kind of crisscross together, just so that they're out of the way. Okay, it doesn't have to stick down forever because we are going to hot glue this to a board. So there we go, we have this there. And my pieces are all dry now. And so let's do the next step here. Now, I just remembered that I wanted to put some little motifs on these little scallops on this roof trim piece, particularly right here. And the reason I want to do that is because this is kind of like the Midland Santa house that I mentioned earlier. And the Midland Santa house has this scalloped eave, and then they have little bells on each little scallop. And I thought about doing that, like, and trying to find teeny tiny little bells. But then I thought, well, the cross stitch piece has toadstools on it, and I kind of like that idea better. So first off, how cool is it that it fits this little scallop niche? I think I'm going to do 3 toadstools, like one here, and then one here, and one here. And so why don't I go get my paint and my little tiny paintbrushes, and let's do that. For the toadstools, I'm going to use this red that I bought, Cardinal Red from Michaels. Don't need a lot. And then I'm going to use the same warm gray that I used for the chimney, and then a little bit of white. And actually, what I think I'm going to do, using my little brush, is I think I'm going to mix a little of the white in to the gray to make it just a little lighter toned, so that I have like kind of more of a mushroom gray, I guess, you know, for the stem. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the stems. I hope you can see this. So using a brush that's kind of flat, and also kind of looking at the guide, I'm going to do just a regular stem, like a U shape. I thought about making the stem like really, really chunky, but I think that's good like that. Okay, and then a little one, and a little one right here. Use a little white to like paint a shine on one side of these stems, because there's a shine on the stem on the cross stitch piece. Okay, there we go. Let's give it a minute to dry, and while I do that, I'm just going to kind of look a little bit at my other pieces, make sure I'm happy with the white. And actually, one of these pieces, I think it's actually this one. Yeah, I had a little drip of the white. I don't want to mess my mushroom stem up, but it's also low stakes. I'm going to go ahead and use the sanding block. Just try to sand some of that away. Once again, this is like not the end of the world if I can't get it off. Because it's acrylic paint, it's kind of rubbery, so a lot of the paint is actually coming off with my fingernail, which I know is not a tool, but I use it anyway. And then I'm just going to kind of sand out a little bit more, just to get most of it off. Okay. Now I can tell by how shiny the stem paint is that it is starting to dry. And so now I'm going to go ahead and paint the toadstools. And actually, I'm going to use the same brush I used for the stems, but I'm going to wipe pretty much as much paint off of it as I can. And then, let's start with the small cap first. So, I think I'm just going to do kind of like straight line on the bottom, and then little dome. Trying to get a clean edge. I'm not very good at painting shapes. Add a little more paint. Okay, let's do the same on this side. really shaky. Okay. Whoa! Dripped a little bit. That's okay. And then just kind of a straightish line on the bottom. Curve it on each side. And then make a dome. Now, with a clean brush, I'm going to really load it with white because I'm going to do polka dots. And I'm going to do that thing where you do an odd number of dots. So let's do 5 little dots on a little mushroom. Did 6 on that one. That's okay. I didn't like how empty one of the spaces was. And then bigger dots on this one. On this one, because I used a lot more paint, really trying to just get the dot on top of the paint without dragging too much of the wet red in and having it bleed out. Like right there. Yeah, that's pretty cute. I like that. So, painting complete. I am going to get rid of this white paper because it's got a big red spot on it. So, sorry about the microphone noise. It's going to make a crinkle crinkle. And now I'm going to get my glue out of my drawer next to me, and we'll start gluing some pieces together. So I am using a wood glue called Tight Bond, Quick and Thick. And what I've noticed about this glue is that it is really, really easy to accidentally use too much of it. I've also noticed that I've lost the cap to it. So that is annoying to me. Oh, here's the cap. It looks like it was... The glue is still flowing, but it just looks like the cap fell off. So let's start with the easiest piece first, which is attaching the base to the other piece that's the base. So keeping the glue kind of in the center and being conservative, I'm just going to glue these pieces together and then make sure that they are lined up. Now I have tried doing these with hot glue, and it has not been a good situation. Hot glue, like when it cures, it just does not adhere to the MDF board or whatever these are made out of, and so things pop apart later. Now hot glue, if you use it on a cross stitch piece to the board, does stick fine. So there's that. I'll be using hot glue to adhere the board to the presentation board, the little cross stitch board, just because I have a lot of issues with wood glue just being too wet, and I'm terrified that I'm going to soak through the mat board and onto the front of my cross stitch piece. That would just be devastating, right? Go ahead and glue the little white element. And then very carefully, I will go ahead and glue this because I can't wait anymore. So I'm just testing it, making sure that I got all my paint in. And then just because this piece is so narrow, I'm just going to do little dots of glue. just using my fingers to kind of feel. But these is one thing that I think is just really nice about these presentation boards are just how easy they are for someone who is not used to like wood and woodworking to fit things together. Now this white glue does dry clear. I do see a couple areas where the glue is there. Now if I were to lift this up, this would slide. So I will not do that. I will leave it here. Okay, we're gonna let all of this stuff cure and then we'll come back to it after lunchtime. Why, hello again. So it is now after lunch and I'm getting ready to finish putting this all together. So I'm waiting for my hot glue gun to warm up, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use hot glue to affix the cross stitch kit or piece onto the board, and then I'm going to use that wood glue that I used before to put the board into the slot. So while I'm waiting for my hot glue gun to warm up, let's go ahead and just get this glue in here. Now remember, this glue is like really, it's easy to go overboard on this, so I'm trying really hard to just put like a small bead. Also, my cat is on the table, and so I'm distracted because I'm like waiting for her to just knock everything down. Hi. There's glue happening here. Okay, let's see if this is warm enough now. Yay, it is. Okay, so I have a new stick of glue in here, and so I'm trying to just squeeze the trigger to get the glue to flow, and then just put like a normal amount. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue this to the finish board, pressing it so that the glue adheres to the board and also doesn't harden and then leave like a ripple from not being squished to the board. And while I'm doing that, I'll unplug my glue gun so that it doesn't leak glue everywhere. Okay, and then now I should be able to fit this slot into the base. Just like that. Okay, so I have these little felt guys I got from Benzie Design that I thought I would use to adorn each side of the finished board. Also, my board has scratches on it, and I know for a fact that my cat did that. That's okay. It just means that she decorated it, right? So I'm going to play around with placement for a second. I've got two gnomes, and I have a toadstool mushroom thing. And so what I could do is I could do one gnome on one side and a toadstool on the other side, or I could try to fit the gnome and the toadstool together on one side. I don't know. I'm gonna have to play around, and unfortunately I'm gonna pull this upward just because I think it's gonna be harder to glue. For this I think I'm going to use the hot glue, so I guess I will need to unplug or plug it back in. Also, I think what I'll do is I'll move the tripod so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, we'll try really hard not to bump this while I'm working. Okay, so if I were to do all three, I would put the green cap gnome with the toadstool because the red cap's like the same color. So we would do something that's like this. Actually looking in the camera to see if I like that. Or we could just have that happen. The other thing is I have this snowflake. So we could do like something to add the snowflake. I don't know. I'm gonna do all of them. So let's start with the green guy. I'm gonna use hot glue. instinct is always to get rid of the little glue spider webs immediately, but that's not necessarily what needs to happen, right? I'll get a generous amount of glue and stick it on. I'm going to go ahead and use the wood glue on this part because the wood glue dries clearer. It's a little easier to control. And what I'm doing, I know you can't really see this, is I'm just putting a really thin bead along about 1/3 of this snowflake, like that, you see? And then just any little globs that are like really obvious, I'm taking care of with my finger right away. And then stick it at a jaunty angle and immediately glob glue everywhere. Now remember, this glue dries clear, and so it'll be okay. Okay, and let it just set for a second while I'm holding it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip this whole thing over. Oh, I just burned myself on the glue, so that the snowflake doesn't like drip down. So we'll just do that, and I'll put this under like a little cushion so that it's kind of level. Let it dry again.